So this morning I woke up like normal, sleep deprived, and you know, taking a minute to come to after getting up, kind of organizing my room, making the bed, brushing my teeth, etc. I sat down to my morning practice, which is usually my priority in the morning if I can make it that. And as usually happens, there are not fireworks. It's usually, honestly, a little bit of drudgery sometimes. First thing, I'm not typically a morning person, and so that first part of my session, which can be anywhere from like 30 minutes to 45 minutes before I take a break and then go back for some more practice. It's usually just kind of blah, kind of just there, going through the motions, what I call sort of showing up for the process. And sometimes it is boring. So I've talked about boredom and meditation here before and some other content. So if you want to search my podcast or YouTube channel for that, you can probably find some more of my thoughts on boredom and meditation. But in particular, this episode, I want to talk about boredom and sort of peak experiences and sort of sometimes what we can get stuck in seeking. It's a little bit of a different angle on boredom and meditation. I'll just say, as you probably heard a moment ago, those sort of half asleep, kind of somewhat, challenging sessions, maybe boring, maybe just a little lackluster first thing in the morning. I'm actually really thankful for those sessions. And I would say most of my days start like that in my formal meditation practice. Some people might be surprised by that. I've been attempting to practice Buddhist meditation for about 26 years. Some of I spent 9 years of that as a Buddhist monastic. And I think quite a bit of that time was wasted chasing peak experience. And what do I mean by peak experience? I mean sort of the highs of meditation, the breakthroughs, the, wow, that's so amazing, delicious, beautiful. We fill with love, we feel with compassion, we fill with maybe some ideas of spaciousness or openness. Sure, those come and go. We call those nyams in the Tibetan tradition, or meditation experiences that come and fall away. And anyways, so I've spent my fair share chasing peak experiences, and probably still to this day, I can fall into that trap easily. And of course, saying here, there's nothing wrong with those experiences. They're wonderful because often they, encourage us to practice more. But there's also here another approach, another way to think of this, another, I don't know how to say it. We can still experience things that are quite transformative and maybe a peak experience that comes and goes and be, satisfied or happy with that. And at the same time, no, it's not actually what we're seeking long term. So, aside from that, I often get a question from people, how has meditation transformed you over these many years? And I don't know, in many ways, right? And a lot of those are kind of simple. A lot of those are not flashy. A lot of those are just on a daily basis, allowing me more mindfulness, more awareness to connect with my mind, emotions, and experience. And I think basically to experience life with a little less suck, a little more contentment. Though I still have a lot of problems. I still have a lot of ups and downs. I still get caught in my emotions and thoughts, right? So I don't know. I've been kind of satisfied with that up till now, in the sense that, I'm very much more dedicated to the process of practice, to the process of studying the Dharma, of, attempting to embody it, but less and less pressure that has to happen now or in a certain way. So just again, from what you usually hear from me, a lot of just putting that energy in, creating the consistent habit, showing up each day. And then, of course, working with the monotony of practice and boredom. There is something else I want to say here, where, not only has that become more comfortable for me, and I would say sort of for others I know as well, as you continue to practice sort of that, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, our formal meditation is not that flashy. not only does that become more comfortable, but actually I kind of prefer that now. And, obviously these are things I'm talking about myself, but of course I'm also offering some exploration from you, some questions to ask you, for you to ask yourself about practice. And the reason I enjoy it more now is in its sort of nature, the mind is actually quite simple. And when I get caught in the complexity of what I'm perceiving mind to be, namely sort of all of my thoughts, fears, worries, anxieties, great ideas, passions, right? When I confuse the mind to be that, it's not that much fun. I mean, it looks fun and it has the markings of something, I should follow, a brilliant idea, et cetera. And again, I'm not trying to be black and white here. I'm not saying those are bad necessarily. It's just that the more we meditate, we can start to see that there is actually more contentment and more peace just being with the simplicity of mind. And what's the simplicity of mind? Awareness, knowing, just that we can know and be aware, right? And be present with that. And as a meditator, I think that's worth putting more time into. I think, for me, I make that part of my goals. So I do have goals. And my goal is to become more intimate with the aware quality of my mind, to let that become more of the host of my experience, to see that the other kinds of flashy minutia that are often appearing, although interesting, they don't actually provide me with much contentment and peace, right? So this is to say, in a way, I've learned to treasure the boring moments even more, because mind in its simplicity, it's neither boring or not boring. I'll just put it that way. But we do sometimes have to go through the boring, because we have to see that simplicity, that lack of flashiness is actually where it's at. And then, of course, as we pursue Buddha Dharma and working with the mind, etc., we can see that there's wonderful qualities that can come because we relax, we let go of unhealthy obsession and care, and compassion can arise a little bit more. There's more room for warmth and love. When difficulties do come up, which are inevitable in life, we know how to work with them with more play, with more ease, with more relaxation. So this is just another reminder, or just something I felt to share, that boredom is okay, that lackluster meditation is okay, and maybe in a way we have to question the chasing of peak experiences, right? If a peak experience happens in meditation, great. Sometimes we're not aiming for that and it happens. Wonderful. We can take joy in that. It means we've been practicing. But also when the meditation is kind of lackluster, but we're still showing up, it also means we've been practicing, right? So they're both sort of good news. And I think the key here is not getting attached to those peak experiences, just letting them come, being okay with them, great, and then moving on, knowing that 90% of our, formal meditation time is not going to be so spicy. So anyways, I'll leave it here. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If this is relating to your practice in any way, if it resonates, you can always comment on YouTube here. You can reach out to me at scotttusa.com. And if you're listening on the podcast, you can reach out to me on the website. So thanks so much.